Hey, welcome everybody to our Thursday night DBC Inc. Facebook Live. We are so glad to join you. I'm with Tara Martin tonight. Hi, Tara.
Hey Dave, how's it going?
It is going fantastic. And if you are, as you pop in here, be sure to throw your name over there in the comments. Let us know where you are joining us from. We are so happy to have you with us. We have a great program for you. And Kristen, back to the number one slot. You got to like that. I think it's been a couple of weeks maybe since she grabbed that number one spot, but she's back on her game. I love it.
I love it. Yes, it's exciting to have you hosting tonight too. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm excited for the topic, and Yesenia has joined us. Thank you so much for being here as well. We really appreciate you. And so, Tara, uh, I know we're going to be diving in, or literally diving
Beautiful.
into a topic tonight. But before we get started with that, let's give people a chance to join in. What else is going on this week?
Well, if any of these people follow me on social media, you've probably seen on my stories that we are about to add an addition to our family, a little puppy. And so I'm getting really excited about that. I have 3 more weeks. Poor Dave, he's been hearing about it since Christmas because this was a certificate I got in my stocking. So I've been telling him about this puppy way before it was even conceived.
I'm
and so I'm
super I'm super nervous about what's going to happen to your social media feed, especially your Instagram stories.
I know. And like, if you don't like puppies, you should probably stop following me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little crazy. Karen from Australia has joined us. Thanks for popping in. We appreciate you. And I think so. Uh, Karen just recently had a birthday. I want to
Yeah.
say, well, I don't know, in Australia,
Yesterday.
maybe 2 days ago, Australia time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that right, Karen? I think that's about right. Yeah, and Kristen's congratulating you on your. But careful, Kristen, you don't know what you're getting into. Like, don't open up too many discussions about this, or we won't get to our topic tonight. So I'm a little nervous.
Well, it won't be long and she'll be joining me for the live. So just prepare yourselves.
Yeah, I guess I can't really say anything because I actually put Raven the cat on my social platforms
Yeah.
yesterday because Raven was doing a little writing on the computer.
She's blogging.
Yeah, getting that book pitch ready.
She's
Yeah,
helping her dad out. Yeah, I'm very excited about puppy selection. So much fun. Can't wait. I've never done this before. So I've never even seen a puppy the size of your hand. And our puppy was once that size. She's already big now, bigger. Little golden doodle, full girl. She'll be a full size one. So yeah, she's gonna be cute.
yeah. So Tara, let us know what are we going to be talking about? What are we going to be diving into tonight?
So tonight I thought we could talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's picture books. I love picture books, and it really doesn't matter what age group you work with. Picture books are a great hook. They are a nice way to hook kids in. I mean, I've seen a lot of people use them in so many different ways. And I thought tonight we would, of course, use Cannonball Ann as the example just because it's the book I'm most familiar with. And I thought I would just tell you a little story and the story, but not read the story to you. Although, if you were using this with students, of course, you would just read the book to them. And then I'm curious to see, like, how you could introduce a lesson that might be coming up with this particular book. Now, granted, I want you to know, like, this works with any picture book, and I could put any book in my hand right now and we could do this because I feel like so many picture books have this timeless message that works across all curriculum areas. It works across all life areas. I know that I read this book and I get a totally different meaning than when I read this to the 5-year-olds. And that's totally fine. That's the whole point of picture book. So I thought as I'm talking about the story, I'm going to show some slides of the book without the words. And then I want you to think about, like, what lesson you have coming up that's maybe a little difficult. Yeah. Kristen, I can't wait to hear how you use this in science too. I mean, I think it just could work with any lessons that are coming up, and also thinking about state testing and all the things that our students have coming up where they're having to take a risk. Kids that are graduating high school. I wrote this book and Caleb was a senior in high school. And I remember him saying, wait a second, this is for me right now when he read it. And I was like, see, it just works for anyone. So I'm going to put up the slides and kind of share the story a little bit, Dave, if that's okay. And then I thought at the end we could just brainstorm, or as I'm talking about it, put some stuff over in the comments. Remember, every single one of those comments will enter you to win a Cannonball Inn book. And I just got some hardback ones, so I want to give away 2. So 2 winners potentially could win the Cannonball Inn books. And you can use them with a future lesson because I'm going to send them out this week. So you can have them in the next couple of days. So I'm hoping you can think of some ways that you could introduce a lesson or something that's coming up for your students. And this will kind of give them that anchor that they can hold on to and think, okay, like I can do this thing. So first, I thought I would start with this idea of taking a risk. And so Dave, when I push play, can you just see my screen?
Yep. I see taking a risk.
Okay, we are good to go. So when I'm thinking about taking a risk, I'm curious to know what one word comes to mind when you think of taking a risk. And I just hope you just drop those over in the comments. And then Dave, if you can kind of read them out loud, because I can't see the comments right now. If anyone drops them over there. But when I think of taking a risk, I think of needing to be brave or courageous. But a lot of times when I ask audiences this, no matter how old they are, I get total antonyms. You know, some people will say scared, other people will say courageous, you know, some people say fearful, and then other people say brave, you know, and you find that people have these opposite ideas of what it means right before they're about to take a risk and they're about to try something new.
Tara, so far we have courage, we have pirate, which is extra credit for Kristen, and we have fearless. Amy put in fearless.
I like that. And so thinking about those words, hearing those words, I want to tell you a little story. So I based this picture book off of a true story. And a lot of you know I came from a less than stellar home life. And I've talked about that before on here, where school was definitely a safe place for me and home was not. But this is one memory of my dad that's a real positive memory. And I wanted to record that memory. And this is the dad who raised me since I was 18 months old. So every year we got to go to the city pool. And I'm going to tell you the story as it was when I was a little girl. But in the storybook, it's of course written with vocabulary words and all kinds of things that you can use to help engage your students in many different ways, not just hooking them in with the story, but also if you wanted to talk about figurative language and things like that. I'm going to tell you the story though, with just like my memory. So my dad would take me to the city pool every single year, and I became quite the confident swimmer in the shallow end of the pool. However, what I really wanted to do is join the jumpers. The jumpers were so amazing. They captivated me every time. And by the time I would get to the edge of the pool, I would just stare at them and watch them. And some of them, their splashes would reach me all the way into the shallow end of the pool. But the jumpers that fascinated me the most were the cannonballers. And my dad, this is my dad, by the way, he was the best cannonballer ever. He made water escape the pool like every single time. I wanted to be just like him. And so one day he came up to me and he asked me this every time we went. We would only go like twice every summer too, because it cost money to go to the city pool. And so he'd say, okay, Tara, like, when are you going to jump? Are you going to jump? And I would always tell him no, because I can't touch the bottom over there. I can't come up if I need, I can't touch the bottom if I need to come up for air, Dad. Like, there's no way I'm going over there to jump. And he would always tell me, but you know how to swim. Like, you have this foundational skill and you know how to swim. And so one day he convinced me to climb up the ladder, and he would show me and model for me over and over again how to do this. And he'd say, climb that ladder with purpose, and then run, jump, grab both knees, and make your splash. He would tell me that all the time. And this time I climbed up just as I'd done many times before, scanned the surface of the pool and realized how intimidating it looked. And down the ladder, I descended and did not jump. And so, of course, I felt so frustrated with myself, so disappointed and myself, because you muster up that courage, stand in that long line, and then don't even jump. And so this next time, my dad finally just convinced me, come on, today's your day. And that's what I did. I just did it. I did not think twice about it. I ran, I jumped, I grabbed both knees and made my splash. And at this moment, I felt like a rock star. And then it hit me. You get deep down in the water and you realize, oh, great. Now I need those skills that my dad kept saying to me, like, you know how to swim. And he would tell me, you know how to swim. And as I would sink deep, deep, deep underwater, I would think, okay, I got to push doubt behind me. I got to push fear behind me, and I have to swim because my life depends on it now. So when I'm thinking about students right now, I'm just going to just bounce back and forth. I think about concepts that we are teaching that are complicated, right? Sometimes we have to teach these really tough lessons. Sometimes they have to go into state testing knowing they are not up to grade level, but they do have some foundational skills. They do know how to swim. They've just maybe not swam in that deep of water before, but they do know how to swim. And maybe their splash isn't going to be as big. Splash can be used for many things. Maybe their score isn't going to be as high as some of the other students in their class, but they have some skills. They are going to be able to meet the standard. They can do this thing. And so reminding kids that, you know, you could tie this into any concept that you're teaching. You can tie this into anything. They're going off to graduation, right? They're going to be in the big wide world. They know some things. You've been taught some things. You need to use that knowledge, swim to the top. And then look what happened inside the book. When she climbed out of the pool, she saw the ripples of her splash, and she was so confident and so excited about what she just did. She couldn't believe it. And she had already faced these dabblers earlier. And she was thinking, okay, now they get to see what I just did. You know, in the book, she had already faced the dabblers. I haven't gone over the dabblers yet, but you're about to meet them. But this time when she passed the dabblers, she had her head up high. She was feeling confident. Like, did you see that? Like, I totally just cannonballed in. And look at the dabblers. The dabblers are the girls that are not wet. They have perfect makeup and hair, and they're just sitting on the sideline judging all the jumpers. So when you think about this, think about students. What are they dealing with? What are the criticisms they deal with when they do try something new? And are we building that culture in our classroom where dabblers aren't welcome in this classroom culture, right? And so when she passed the dabblers, they were giving her the worst time. They're like, really? That's all you got, Twiggy? What's the best splash you can make? And they told her things like, you got a wedgie. We saw your bottom from here. It was just terrible. And she felt horrible. And this was actually a real story. So I remember this very vividly. I marched myself right back to the shallow end, and I was like, heck no, I am never doing that again. Did you hear them? And my dad is like, what are you talking about? You cannonballed in. You did that. And one of the things my dad told me that day that has stuck with me for the rest of my life is you were not born to sit on the sidelines and watch the jumpers. You were born to jump. And another thing he told me that was stuck with me forever is the dabblers. What do they even know? They're not even wet. How do they know about jumping if they're not even wet? And I think we have to encourage this risk-taking like culture in our classroom that, if people are taking risk, that's the people I want to talk to. I want to talk to the other cannonballers and figure out how are they doing that, rather than just getting defeated by the people sitting on the sidelines and watching. And just when the little girl was feeling terrible about herself and finally decided she was going to go back to the diving board, these two little kids swam up on the shallow end and they said, hey, we just wanted to let you know that was the best cannonball ever. And she's like, really? My ripples, like just after dealing with the dabblers? And these kids, they loved it because they said, yeah, because we're so afraid we can't touch the bottom over there. They had the same fears that she had, but by watching her take this risk, and then they were ready to try it too. And she said, if you can swim, take my hand. I'll go with you. Today is our day to cannonball in. And I think, if you're thinking about lessons, I'm curious to hear like what you guys think about lessons in your own classroom. where you can talk about taking a risk, or we can encourage kids, or we can link parts and pieces of this picture book to things that they will be doing. And so if you have some ideas, I want to see them over in the comment section. And then I'll talk in a minute about how you might use Cannonball Inn for teaching. But I'm curious to know what your thoughts are for teaching with Cannonball Inn or a story like this. Do you have any thoughts over there, Dave?
So Tara, Amy has said that she loves this as the interstate testing season in New York. Mm-hmm. And I'm still looking for that blog that I have about that. And Kristen popped in, this is such a timeless story. I think of this and how we teach kids to not be bystanders and be upstanders. Those are a couple things that we have in there so far.
So true. And honestly, I think, when I talk to teachers, a lot of times I'll talk about trying something new in our classroom and how this works for adults too. Sometimes we're trying something new in our classroom, and then there's dabblers across the hallway, the teachers who don't want to try something new, that are talking about and judging the way that you're doing it. And it may look like chaos in your classroom, but it could be organized chaos. It could be learning taking place and excitement. And I think reminding students that, we deal with that on an adult level too. And so if you're interested, particularly in Cannonball Inn, before I close out my screen, I just wanted to show you that there are some actual resources for Cannonball Inn. There's some lesson plans. If you just go to my website, tarammartin.com, you can go to the Cannonball Inn and the Cannonball Inn resources. And they're like little activities. There's an interactive bulletin board. There are lesson plans, all kinds of fun ways that you could tie it into your lesson. What Common Core standards, if you use those, relate to this part and piece of the book. And so you can definitely check those out. But honestly, like I'm with Kristen, I wrote this book hoping that it would be timeless, hoping that it would relate to people no matter what age of life they are. And I think it honestly does. I feel like you could tie it into any curriculum area. So I'm curious. Yes. Those were my teachers with technology before COVID. Exactly, right? They felt scared. They felt intimidated. They might have judged other people for the way they were doing it, right? They were intimidated by them. But using a storybook like this, even in a staff meeting, I don't see a problem with using storybooks, picture books, for lots of different purposes, especially when we want to try to hook the learners in. And then later we relate it back to the picture book.
Tara, interestingly enough, both Yesenia and Amy said the same thing. They could see you doing this with teachers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've done it with teachers a bunch of times. Dave's seen me do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's a great picture book is absolutely something that has messages that resonate on many different levels. And so I love the fact that we have a couple of those. I just feel like I spend as much time talking to adults about some of our picture books as I do younger kids.
Agreed. I think when I was learning to write a picture book and studying all the different types of picture book authors, one of the things I learned the most is to try to create a timeless message that works for ages 8 to 80. That was one thing that kind of stuck out in my head. And I've always thought that. I'm like, okay, a message that fits ages 8 to 80. That means you have to be pretty broad in some of your statements, but it also has to be something that they can connect to in a very real way, but then they also can connect it very abstract. And that's one of the things I will say. Cannonball Inn, Dave's heard me tell this story before too, but it is definitely a project. Most things I do in life, I'm not satisfied with. I always feel like I could do a little bit better. I always feel like CrossFit could be a little bit better. I always feel like my speaking could be a little bit better. My writing could be a little bit better. This could be a little bit better. But Cannonball Inn is one project that I've put out into the world. It's probably the only project I've ever put out in the world that I actually feel super proud of. I don't think I would change it.
Tara, I can't allow you to say that.
I know, right? It's very strange.
You've done so many wonderful projects, including Be Real and all your work with DBC and in your districts before that and all that. So it pains me to hear you say that. Although Cannonball Inn is certainly something to be proud of.
It's a fun little book. I don't say that just so you will go buy it, because two people are going to win it. So just keep commenting. But I do think Yes, Karen. So Karen's school in Australia, we have opened the school year. How many years, Karen? Is this the third year that we've opened the school year with Cannonball Inn? Oh, thanks, Monica. Um, and we we've opened their school in Australia with this book. Like, this is the beginning of the year. This is what they start with. And all year long, Karen's, yeah, this will be the third year. All year long, her students are like, I'm just going to cannonball in. Or if they hear some critics, they're like, that's just the dabblers. I need to ask people that actually know how to do this. I need to quit worrying about what people are saying that don't do this and go ask the people that actually know how to do it. Learning to control those thoughts at such a young age is so amazing.
Thank you for joining us, Amy. Amy's popped in here, says she loves your book, Tara. So as do I. That's fantastic. We appreciate you joining us. And Monica, yeah, you're right. Very true. Be Real is amazing too. Thank you so much for that too. What I did is I threw in a blog post that I wrote a couple years ago called Putting on Socks. It actually tells a story of me working for John Wooden at the John Wooden basketball camps and how he taught campers and even Division I athletes how to put on socks. And just the idea was that the how you do the most basic things is often how you do everything. It's like a focus on the fundamentals and all that. And in that blog, I make a connection to standardized tests. So I know, Amy, you mentioned that standardized tests are starting in New York, and a couple of you, the rest of you, Monica, I think, mentioned it was testing season. And so I have some information in there because that's one of the things that I talk about in that blog post is about the idea that what is the reason to focus and do well on standardized tests? Not because they're going to affect their future or because it's going to be on some transcript or anything like that. It's because you're doing it. And when you do something, then it's worthy of your best effort and your excellence. And so there's a whole little section in there about motivating kids to do well on standardized tests without fear-based models of like, if you don't do well on this test, our school is going to be downgraded, or like any of that kind of fear-based kind of stuff.
So true. And I think that's the thing. Even connecting it back to what we were talking about earlier, all students have some kind of foundational skill. And that's where, I think a lot of us get really nervous when we're about to try something big or new. And especially some of these students that feel like their level of ability is not up to par to answer some of those questions on the Common Core or on the state testing, because they are asked in such weird ways sometimes. But reminding them, like, you have this skill. Like my dad was like, you know how to swim. Like, if you know how to swim, you are not going to let yourself drown. And I think reminding kids, you have this foundational skill. Like, you are going to be able to think your way through this. It might take a little longer, and you may not, at the end of the day, they're not going to maybe score this really ridiculous score. But if they make a PR, right? If they get to the next level up from them, that is to be celebrated. And I think a lot of times we get so caught up in like what the state wants and what this wants, but truly we know our students, and we know if they go in there somewhat confident, they're going to do better than if they go in there scared and worried.
Yeah. I love this from David. David mentioned that begun is half done. That mindset, the power of showing up, and the power, I think that is key. That's great. And I also love to hear about Yesenia is going to be reading the book to staff next week. I love it.
Yay. That's exciting. I can't wait to hear what they think about it. Be sure and tweet, share it, all that. I love all that stuff too. Yesenia, I'm with you. I think so often, not only do we sabotage ourselves, a lot of times, I think I talked about this on my story yesterday, we sometimes sabotage ourselves off of perception, which I think is so crazy. Like, just what we think other people might think of us. It's not even necessarily true. And I think a lot of times that too is something we need to overcome. We need to like cannonball in, get over it, go do that thing that we want to do, and quit worrying about what other people think or their approval of us.
I see that we also have some language differences with our friends from down under.
They tell me every time. And so now when I read
dive,
I always started out with cannonball. What is that in Australia? Oh, that's a bomb dive. I know now. So we have a hook of the week this week, Dave. I thought we might could share that with them too.
Absolutely. Let's throw it up.
Let's throw it up. By the way, if you still think of other ways to use Cannonball in, you can still share them anytime, but we'll throw
Here we
that
go.
up.
The hook of the week is the life-changing lesson hook, which goes perfectly with today's topic. How can I use this lesson to deliver an inspirational message? So beyond the content standards that you're trying to deliver, that you need to deliver as part of your curriculum, how can you weave in, how can you embed what I call an LCL, or a life-changing lesson, into this? And so like Tara, you mentioned you might be talking about using Cannonball in to talk about figurative language and different and vocabulary and all this, but you're also embedding in the inspirational message about risk taking and not worrying about the dabblers and what people say about you, and having that courage to do something new. All those different things are examples of LCLs that are embedded into that story. And there's lots of different ways that we can embed these things into our curriculum, into our content, in a seamless way. As long as we're there, as long as we're doing the material, we might as well build in and embed those LCLs along the way. Tara, we can't hear you.
Forgot about that because my husband's like hammering something. You hear that? So I muted that so you didn't have to hear it.
Good timing, D.
He's not eating today. He's hammering something. But yeah, if you have some ideas of how you might use the life-changing lesson hook in your setting outside of the picture book, just other ways, what lessons, life lessons do you share with your students that kind of connect them in to the topic? And with every single one of these hooks, it's really an anchor, right? It's something to get them excited about. And then later when you're teaching the content, they go back to like that thing that hooked them in at the onset, right? It's kind of like I call it an anchor. I guess it's a hook, but it anchors the knowledge inside their brain. So later when they're recalling it, they remember the hook, and then they usually remember the concept that we taught them afterward.
Yeah, and I see this comment from Yesenia about her AP passed away this last week. So sorry to hear that, and definitely our sympathy and condolences to all of you and your school and the family and friends. That is definitely a situation where I'm sure you've had to cannonball in and take care of lots of things. And so our heart goes out to your whole school system who's dealing with that right now.
For sure. I think this would be great for new teachers too. Really anybody who's taken any kind of new challenge, right? Caleb talking about going to college. He's like, whoa, this is me right now. And that was a couple of years ago. For sure, brand new teachers, and Yesenia, for sure. We are thinking about you. That's a lot to take in on a tough year already. So yeah, so if you guys try the hook of the week, we would love for you to tag us, share with us on social media. You can find Dave at Virtus Dave backwards, and then on Instagram at DBC_Inc. And then you can find me on Twitter at Tara Martin EDU, or on Instagram at Tara M Martin Real.
Yep. If you use the hook of the week, make sure you use the hashtag for that too, which is just hook of the week, right? And we always love to see stuff in the TLAB hashtag. And if you use Cannonball in that message, we'd love for you to hashtag that up too. And that's just hashtag Cannonball in. And extra credit if you throw on real edu as a hashtag too.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to add the blog link over here for the hook of the week, Dave, before we get off of here, just in case anybody's interested in. There's a few more questions that you might ask yourself inside the blog when you're preparing for this hook. And so you might want to look at those questions and think of how you can use the life-changing lesson hook in your tomorrow's lesson or next week either as well.
Well, Tara, there couldn't be a better match than your book Cannonball In and the life-changing lesson hook of the week. So that was a perfect pairing for this week. I don't know if you planned it that way, but it worked out perfectly. We are so happy that all of you joined us tonight. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We know that these weeks get super busy, and by the time you get to Thursday, Sometimes the last thing you want to think about is something having to do with education, but we love the fact that you take a little time out of your night and join us. It means the world to us.
For sure. And if you're watching this on the playback, be sure and comment. We do wait to choose our winner, usually Friday night. It's been kind of the thing. Be sure and comment. We do have 2 Cannonball Inn books that we'll be sending out to 2 of you. So do that. And yeah, that's it for tonight. If you're looking for the link of that book, be sure and click it above or below this video. I'm also going to drop my link to my website here, which is TaraMMartin.com. And there you can go to books. And if you click the Cannonball Inn, you can find all the different Cannonball Inn resources there. So do check those out. They're all free. Might as well check them out and see if it's something you might want to use in your classroom.
Absolutely. Well, all right, everyone. Good night. And we'll see you same time next week.
Bye, everyone.